All right, I want to go over the weekly assessment with you guys. So this one is a unique weekly assessment because we would normally be doing this as a Socratic seminar, which means we would be in a boardroom style format, taking one side of the argument and playing kind of the character as of arguing for one side of this argument or the other. So here's our reading to go along with our Socratic seminar. Metrication is a term that we are going to be talking about here. So metrication is the process of using the International System of Units, or System International de Unités. Most of the time is considered the metric system of measurements. And it is meant to replace the traditional or customary units of a country or region. The United States uses the US customary system, and even though those units have been redefined as SI units or comparison to SI units, the United States does not mandate the use of SIs, making it only one of 3 countries in the entire world that has not adapted the SI system, or International System of Units, and the metric system as their official systems of weight and measurements. So the only other 2 besides the United States is Burma and Liberia. So here's the question of, should the United States change this? There was a previous president that actually tried to introduce the metrication to the United States, and it kind of fell flat. And I want you to explore, from working with it over this week, what are your thoughts? So let's take a look at our different ones. I want you to list 2 reasons that support the US changing to the metric system. So this would be the for side, because you have for and against. So the for side here. Now I'm going to share just some of them. If you have your own opinions, awesome. But let's talk about some of these particular ones. So first of all, there is the base 10 system. It is a base 10 system, so everything just goes with moving of the decimal place, which is very nice for math. You would need to know the prefixes that you'd learn at a young age rather than all of the conversion rates, which I would probably argue some of you didn't even know 5,280 feet in a mile. Actually, normally that's only about 25% of the people in the United States actually know that number by heart. So what does that particularly say to you if we don't know the conversions already, versus you might actually know some of these prefixes already, or the mainly used ones you might know already. Of kilo is a very commonly done one. Centi and milli are really the only 3 that are used in the metric system. Other ones are known of, but they're more precise measurements. It is easier for math. So it's easier to particularly calculate these conversions. And the rest of the world uses these particular measurements. So if you in the United States are interested in traveling anywhere for fun, for recreation, for vacation, or let's say you work in another country, but you're based out of the United States, even though you're in the US, you will need to convert everything to metric system for you to communicate with the people that are in those other countries. And then when you bring it back here, if you were building, let's say, a building here, or building a tool machine here and then sending it over, you would have to reconvert back to US to build it here to send back over, but it would need to have metric units. It gets really confusing there. So there was just some of them. You just need to put 2 of them down. You can make up your own, but I just gave you some of them. You can rewatch the video to get those ones if you want to use some of my examples. Now let's talk about 2 reasons to not support this change, to stay with the US customary system. So this is the mindset that is against metrication. So first of all, America. That's my first example. The idea of America, what makes America unique, is kind of like our thing. I don't know if that's necessarily a good or bad thing, but it could technically be a reason to support this argument. The fact of it does indeed make us unique. Another reason would be we just don't want to change. We kind of already do what we do. We don't want to change it. We just keep it the same. That is, even though it might not be too difficult to change, it is something that we already know. So if we already know it, we don't want to change it. Now, I would also argue, if I was the other side, do we actually already know it? Because how much more difficult was it to do those questions than the metric conversion questions, honestly? Now, how long would it take to actually convert this over for us to learn? That would be multiple generations, possibly, even if you start in like kindergarten teaching these prefixes. It could take a while before you get all of the generations into using this particular method. And then some people would argue the idea of changing over signs, changing over recipe books, changing over, because teaspoons, tablespoons, cups, all of those things would change. Changing over things of measuring in your kitchen, in your home, changing out rulers, even all of those things that have our inches, miles, foots, cups, gallons, measurements, all of those things, especially the grocery store. Think of all the measurements of grocery store things. Every single one of those would need to change their labeling of some sort of kind. So the cost accompanied with changing over to the metric system would be quite a bit of cost. Now, I can't help you with the last question here because it's totally what is your personal thoughts. What would you choose? I think that the US should choose. What side? And why you think that? Minimum of 2 sentences. Really, you could go up to about 4 sentences if you wanted to give multiple supports. But one last thing that I wanted to share with you is this particular diagram here. So this is a map of the United States, and every single state that is colored, so has the regular color of the mountains, all of these states have some sort of metric signs in them on their interstate highway system and things like that already. So surprisingly, the yellow ones, and Minnesota does not. We do not have any of these, so you might not have seen them around if you haven't traveled outside of Minnesota. Um, but lots of states do have them. Let me show you some examples of what I'm talking about here. So here is a particular example, and I'm going to give a, there you go, there's California. Um, the conversions here so that people can start seeing what those conversions are. There's a lot of places that do the conversions where it's kilometers per hour compared to miles per hour as the speed limit sign. So in that particular aspect, that sign is very, very little and actually just attached on the bottom. So it's not creating a whole new sign in that case. So for instance, the Cincinnati one over here would be a whole new sign that is created with both of them, versus adding on these little signs would be a very smart way to do this conversion. A lot of states are actually starting to do the whole think metrics thing, and km for kilometers per hour, thinking in kilometers rather than miles per hour. So a lot of places are doing conversions like that already to try to show you the different conversions there, getting that into our normal mindset of the differences. There's difference from feet and meters too. There's distances, not only speeds, but also those distances. So those do exist as well. This is a different kind of assessment. Good luck on it. Let me know if you have any questions. Adios.